Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks, a podcast that's here to bust criminals and lick its own butt, and it's all out of criminals. It's Sif Pop. Welcome to Sif Pop Weekly, streaming live most weekends or available to download later in your podcast feed. Unless, of course, you're a patron. Patrons get those perks. I'm your host, Aaron Dicer, and each week we will chat about movies, TV, and whatever else from the pop culture universe is on our minds. And please welcome our guest this week. She has a kill code to ensure she will never, ever, 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 ever turn evil. It's Susan Comyob Stevens, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Welcome back. Welcome back. I'm assuming you have your own kill code to make sure that you don't turn evil. So
of course,
I just wanted
as everyone should. Yeah,
as everyone should. That is correct. We've got an exciting show for you today. Thank you for joining us. As you may notice, Andrew is not with us this week. He had other things come up, and we totally understand that. But Susan has graciously joined us to step in and help talk about a couple of great movies that have come out recently. I should just say a couple of movies. Because I don't know that I want to call both of them great, but we will get there. We're going to talk about Without Remorse on Amazon Prime, and The Mitchells versus the Machines on Netflix, which originally I think was called Connected, at least.
Oh.
When we were doing, by the way, Susan is on the Critics' Choice Association with me. That's where we met each other and connected first, speaking of connected.
Yeah.
But I was in charge of the animated category in our Super Awards this year, our debut Super Awards.
Yeah.
And Connected was one of those that originally was supposed to come out last year and was going to compete for animated film and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, pandemic. And so it got pushed to this year. And eventually they sold it to Netflix. This is not a Netflix original. This, was, I actually forget, but I think it's, I shouldn't guess. Do you remember, Susan?
What that is,
like the production company for Mitchell versus the Machines? I think it's Sony, but I really shouldn't guess
because I thought it was just Netflix. I just assumed it. We got it on Netflix, so I just assumed it was a Netflix original. So I'm learning from you, and I didn't know about Connected at all. Yeah,
it is Sony. It's Sony Pictures Animation.
Okay.
It is interesting, right? The world we live in, especially coming. I mean, it's interesting in so many ways. Just coming through the pandemic, but the idea of which movies were made by streamers and which ones were just bought by streamers because the studios that produced them didn't want to wait anymore and didn't want, wanted to get them out to audiences. Yeah, it kind of mixes your brain up a little bit, trying to figure all that stuff out. I believe the same is true Without Remorse. I don't think Without Remorse was originally supposed to be just on Amazon Prime. I think that was supposed to be in theaters as well. So
yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, so interesting times that we are in. But we're going to talk about both those things. Of course, we'll do some buried treasure at the end. We've got a best ever challenge about best ever Navy movies, movies featuring the Navy, and all that's going to be a ton of fun. We spent our member-only pre-show time talking about the Marvel promo that dropped, so that was really fun.
Yeah.
And all of that together just kind of feels like, Susan, I don't know how you're feeling, but it kind of feels like people are going to be, if they aren't already, just kind of heading back into theaters. I'm not sure when theaters will drop like the like when theaters will start filling every seat. I'm not sure when they'll start doing that, but I think people are heading back. How's it feeling where you are?
I think it is. I will admit, I already gone to a press screening for the first time, and it was like dead though. There was only 3 like press people in there, and like the rep.
Wow.
And it was in the huge like IMAX Dolby whatever theater. So I had like my own row plus extra in front and behind.
Yeah.
So I felt super safe, but they're definitely giving us those options. Like I know they sent like the option if you want to watch Cruella in theaters, or you know, when I'm getting the link offer, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna obviously take the link. If it's no option for a link, I have found myself going ahead being like, okay, sure, why not? Because it is spaced out enough, but it does give me hope. I'm like, okay, well, I think we're getting there. Once they're releasing, I think if they continue to release these like big movies, like obviously the Marvel, I really think that's going to bring people back into theaters. I don't know if they're going to fill seats, but yeah.
I do too, even though Black Widow is available on Disney Plus for like the Disney Plus, what do they call it? Premium, or I can't remember what they call it off the top of my head right now. Premiere Access. Yeah, I think you're right. So even if they do, or even though they are doing the Premiere Access for Black Widow, I do think that's going to be the movie. It just feels to me like July. That's 2 months from now, almost exactly 2 months from now.
Yeah.
Unless something spikes with the numbers, variants aren't handled by vaccination, unless there's some weird news with the pandemic, which could happen, not trying to jinx it, I promise. But unless something happens, it really feels like that's going to be the movie. And it's not the first big movie coming out, but it just feels like that's going to be the one that it's like, let's do this thing. Movies are back.
Yeah. Because who really, like for me, I want to watch Black Widow in theaters. I've been waiting all this time. I don't want to watch it at home. Like it needs to be in the big screen.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. And we'll be there right along the way, telling you about all the stuff that's coming out or come out recently. So let's go ahead and get into that. We'll kick it off with a review of Mitchell versus the Machines. Young Katie Mitchell embarks on a road trip with her proud parents, younger brother, and beloved dog to start her first year at film school. But their plans to bond as a family soon get interrupted when the world's electronic devices come to life to stage an uprising. Mitchell's versus the Machines has plenty of cast you may have never heard of before, and then plenty of cast maybe you have. Danny McBride is in one of the major roles, Maya Rudolph. In fact, lots of SNL vets doing a lot of the voices here. Lots of a big cast in this one. This is, as mentioned, from Sony Animation via Netflix. What did you think, Susan? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay?
I loved it. It was so good. I can't believe how good this movie was. Like it surprised me. I got, we got the link or whatever in our screener press thing or whatever. And I remember starting it thinking, we'll see. I'm not even gonna lie. I was on my phone at the very beginning. And she says the line, movies have always been there for me, really early at the top. And I put my phone down because that was like the first thing that struck a chord. I was like, oh my God, me too. Yes. I know exactly what you're talking about. Like I feel like anybody who you right away click with Katie's character because she does feel like there's always, for most people, there's something that you are so passionate about and maybe other people don't understand it. And you're looking for your people and to connect with, because a lot of times your family doesn't get it, or maybe where you grew up doesn't get it. And I absolutely understand too, because when I went to college, and even it's like college, and then the field I'm in now is where I found people that understand the love of movies. And I know for her, it's making film, but still it's just looking for that bond that it's like you get to speak another language with somebody. So that right away. But then there's so many elements to this movie that people can connect with as far as, the social media, being obsessed with your phones, and the father-daughter storyline, and just being like the perception of like a perfect family. And I don't know, it's so original and witty and heartfelt. It's everything. It blew me away, honestly.
Okay. Settle down, Susan. Settle down.
Yeah, I know. I really liked it.
No, I'm just kidding. In the like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay category, I am a very, very strong loved it as well. This may be my favorite movie of the year so far. I really, really had a good time with this. We haven't mentioned that on the production side of thing, this is from Lord and Miller, who, for me, really burst onto the scene with Lego Movie. But even before Lego Movie, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs was really the first movie where I was like, oh, this like style of madcap, fast-paced humor is really fun and clever and interesting. So even way back in the Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs kind of era, I had started to see kind of almost their calling card now. It has become kind of their thing. Into the Spider-Verse, by the way, feels very, very similar to this as well. And of course comes from the same production company. So yeah, I think that there is a lot to love here. I have very little negatives, but you mentioned a lot of the positives that I would. I would also say one of the things I love about this movie is it's completely not afraid just to broaden the idea of what an animated film is.
Yeah.
It uses so many different styles of animation, so many different. It almost is like consecutive memes. Like there's this idea in the movie that it's just like all these moments of stuff happening, and there's live action in this movie. Yeah. There's actual photos and actual video. Like it's really interesting how they're just not afraid to just do what the joke requires in that moment. And yeah, I fell in love with it too.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun.
And it's really funny. Like,
yeah,
I mean, it's nonstop laughs for the most part. I found myself laughing a lot more than I thought I would.
Yeah. Of course, when you get a cast like this, that's bound to happen as well. I mentioned the SNL alums. You've got Beck Bennett in there for some, Jay Farrow, Sashir Zameda, Conan O'Brien, also an SNL alum. He used to write for SNL. He's in there. Let's see. Olivia Colman, by the way.
Oh my God.
We haven't talked about
wow.
with her voice work in this. I thought she was great.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know that there's a lot I don't want to spoil anything necessarily. Right. So, to talk about the plot or the structure, it's almost secondary to what's going on here, but it does work. And I think that's worth mentioning, is that the story, it's not as if it's non-existent. It is very much a story about this family and about, what the connected world means. My only negative I have is that I think with a little more discipline, it feels like the themes of this movie could have been even more consistent, because it's dealing with a lot of different things here. It's dealing with the idea, and you can even see it in the original title, Connected. Like there's this idea that the movie really wants to deal with how technology is impacting our lives. Like you started off by saying, I'll admit it, I was kind of in my phone when I started this movie.
I know.
Well, that's kind of what this movie's about, right?
I know. That's the irony of that. Yeah.
So there is a scene early on where the family tries to not look at their phones over dinner, and at different varying levels of success. And so the movie is definitely trying to do those things, but then it very much just becomes a sci-fi adventure, which is fine. But those themes just kind of live there in the background without really being brought home, because it seems like the theme the movie wants to bring home is the family relationship, which is fine. And they go together. But I can't shake the feeling that just with a little more organization, discipline, cutting a few things, narrowing a few things, that maybe we could have got a really beautiful movie about how disconnected we are from each other and how social media has impacted our lives in those ways. All that stuff is in there. It just feels, in many ways, like the movie feels a million miles a minute, and just, flashy colors and thrown on the screen. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's just, maybe that's my own personal preferences coming out to play, right? Like that, I prefer a movie that's more focused, and this movie is not focused. That's not what it's trying to do.
Right, because it's one of those like you said, it's nonstop action. There's some it's almost feels like a wild chase, but I did see that. I mean, you're right, maybe it's not quite as focused, but I did feel that. I felt like technology was the big reason why this family was so disconnected, because she was obsessed with her movies, the brother's obsessed with dinosaurs, the mom's obsessed with seeing other families on her like Instagram or whatever version of Instagram, and dad's just not tech savvy at all. So it's just, this is their barrier is what it felt like. It felt like this is the reason, like the block here. But there was a lot more going on too. So I can see your point.
Yeah. I think it may be just a style thing, and it may just be me, and maybe it may even just be me searching for, criticisms, because I really did love this movie so much. Yeah. The only other super tiny one is a character one with the dad. I just don't believe any human being at that age would not know what a website was. You know what I mean? Like there's this element to that character that is so tech ignorant that I just couldn't buy it. Like, I know maybe for like, a couple generations above me, maybe, but like my generation, like, the internet started when we were in high school. So like, it's not something that's foreign to us, No,
you're right. Yeah. I mean, as my dad I think part of it is a culture thing. He's not super tech savvy, but I will say he knows how to go to Yahoo, log into his email, go to like a website. I think he loves his online poker. Like, it's not that bad as
the dad's like www.
He's very slow at it. He's very he might be like a little bit slower, but not like to where this dad was.
Right. Yeah. Again, a very minor thing, because really all I want to do is gush about this movie. Any other thing that we haven't touched on that you wanted to say about Mitchell's versus the Machines before we move on?
I'm kind of trying to be careful, because I too agree, like, because I went in with it, so I didn't know anything really about this movie. So that I think that added to the experience. So I don't want to spoil anything. No, I just don't want to spoil anything. So it was just really great. I think it's a treat that it's on Netflix. Like, I feel like this is a movie that we don't, like, if anything, should be charged like $30 to see, because I can't believe we're able to watch it on Netflix. Like, it's that good.
It's also a movie I really would have liked to have seen on a big screen though too. It's so colorful and beautiful and sharp, and I'm in the minority here, but I also probably would have liked to see it in 3D. There's so much going on, and to feel how the interplay between like the hand-drawn animation and the computer, animation could have worked in 3D, and some of the fun stuff they could have done. I don't even know if that they produced. I don't think they even produced this one in 3D, but I'm just saying, a visual movie like this makes me want to see it in those kind of cool environments. So yeah, I think we have entered a brave new world, Susan. And I think the wall of streaming means bad or lesser quality, movie, I think has been officially torn down. I think that has been hastened by the pandemic for sure. But I think we were always going to get there, and that's going to have consequences in a whole bunch of different ways. But there are definitely good consequences in that we get to see these movies. So Mitchell's versus the Machines is absolutely a recommend from me. Susan?
100%. Watch it.
100%. The only people I can see not enjoying this movie is if it's just too much for you. If there is a level of whoa, stop it with the flashing stuff. Like, maybe this movie will be too much for you, but it's so much fun. So check it out on Netflix. Again, that is Mitchell versus the Machines. All right, let's move on to Without Remorse. Seeking justice for the murder of his pregnant wife, an elite Navy SEAL uncovers a covert plot that threatens to engulf the United States and Russia in all-out war. Without Remorse is based on a Tom Clancy novel. It stars Michael B. Jordan as John Clark. So not Jack Ryan. Jack Ryan is the other Tom Clancy hero that we usually get, but this is John Clark. And many others hanging out here as well as Guy Pearce in here too. What did you think about Without Remorse? I should mention on Amazon Prime. Susan, did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay?
Oh man, I don't even know what to say about it. It's what I'm somewhere between just okay and didn't like it. I think.
Okay, so like low side of just okay, high side of didn't like it.
Low side of just okay. I think that's right, because Michael B. Jordan is amazing, and what a wasted talent. It's like a wasted talent, but also he makes the movie watchable. But oh my God, I don't even know what's happening. I didn't care. I really didn't care. I tried, but as soon as his wife died, I was just like, what? Like,
yeah,
what?
no, it's yes. I gotta say my thing first. I am on the high side of didn't liked it.
Okay.
I did not like this movie, but I understand there's some good work going on here. Specifically, you mentioned Michael B. Jordan. And I can talk about some of the other things I liked here in a second, but I did want to respond to what you were saying about the wife character, which, by the way, a little bit of a spoiler, but it happens very early on, and I don't think they're like hiding that in the marketing or anything like that. But it's just such a trope that we have seen over and over and over again. I believe they call it fridging, right? There's a term for this trope, right? Where the idea is the hero's significant other dies in the first few, minutes of the movie, and then they have to get revenge. Like the whole motivation is this character we don't know, never have time to care about, never really have time to connect with, and they're gone. And now we're supposed to buy into our hero's motivation, even though we can't really feel it like they do. They try in the 5 minutes they have to help us make that connection, but it just doesn't work. And it's just, we've seen it so many different times. And the movie just buries itself in cliche, itself in cliche after cliche after cliche. And I just felt like I don't need to watch this movie. I've seen it a million times. Like, I just didn't, it really never got anywhere new or clever with the story, in my opinion.
No, I completely agree. And we've seen it done better, honestly. It was just like you hit my biggest pet peeve in a film is character development. Like, I need to care about the characters. I started caring about his wife. I was like, okay, can't wait to get to know her more, because I was worried something was going to happen. But I was like, that quick? What? Yeah. Okay. I guess I will buy the revenge. And like, there's so many characters even in the beginning that get killed off that I was like, wait, who are you? Why did you die? Like, yes. I just didn't care. And that was the biggest problem. Because I didn't care, it was so hard to even like focus on what was happening after the fact. I was like, I don't know. This is just gunshots and action, and it was a lost plot. Like, even with the stuff at the end when it happened, I was like, all right, just finish this movie.
I'm with you. I agree with you on this one as well. I will just say I did look it up. Fridging, which I had mentioned, is the practice of killing off or hurting a minor character in order to motivate or torture a main character. The term comes from the world of comics, describing an issue of Green Lantern in which the hero's partner is killed and stuffed in a refrigerator for the protagonist to find. So fridging. This is like textbook fridging. That's exactly what this is. And it's so annoying and it's so frustrating. And even more frustrating because Michael B. Jordan is so good. He's so good. I believe him. He's so earnest. The other positive I was going to mention is I think some of the action in this is actually done fairly well. There's some interesting visuals in some of the action. There's a scene that happens in a car that I'd never seen anything like that before. Yeah. I really liked that. There's some other action beats, action moments that I thought, oh, that's clever. That's fun. But it's just in this story that I don't care at all about. Like, I just can't find my connection to the story in a way that any of it matters to me. So
that is the problem. Yeah,
rough experience.
And I agree. There is, and it's not. It's you have a good point. It is well shot. There are really good action elements, and it looks good. It's almost, I don't know. It's just it has an attractive outside, but the inside there's nothing there. It's not enough to keep your attention. It's like a bad date with a good looking person.
You're probably right. It's been a long time, Susan. It's been a long time since this guy's been on a date with anybody but his wife. So it's one of those things too where it's frustrating because Taylor Sheridan wrote this, and he's written some really interesting, good things, and man, all the pieces are here. It's one of those things you watch and you just go, this should have been so much better. It just should have been so much better.
You have a good cast, even outside of Michael B. Jordan. You have, Jamie Bell, Guy Pearce, it's there. It's just, it probably does fall on the script a lot.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that I have a ton more to say because these kind of reviews can just turn into shoveling dirt on, the already dead corpse. And, and I don't know that we need to go there. I will say, if you love the material, I don't know if that makes this better or worse. I haven't read the book. I haven't really read any of Tom Clancy's stuff. I do know there are other Tom Clancy movies that I enjoy. In fact, I rewatched Patriot Games and Clear and Present Danger because the Harrison Ford ones are my favorite. And really enjoy those movies, even though, there's a little bit of dumb 90s action in them. They're a lot of fun. I haven't watched I think it was Chris Pine was Jack Ryan in one of the movies, and Ben Affleck was Jack Ryan in another movie.
Was he? Oh, I didn't know that. I watched the Chris Pine one.
So I haven't rewatched those recently, but it is frustrating when you like material and then it's done poorly. So maybe you won't like it. But then again, if you know more that can fill in the blanks that maybe we didn't know, maybe that helps somehow. I just don't know what to tell you if you're a fan of the book, because I have not read it. This is one of those weird ones though, where it's like you watch a bad movie and you're like, I kind of want you to make another one, maybe give it another try.
Oh, you want another one? Oh,
I do. But do you understand why though? Because the pieces are there, and if you can just get the script right, and I can care, and you can do it. I want a second swing with this group, trying to get it right. So, but it's probably I don't know.
I guess I would watch a second one because I like Michael B. Jordan so much, and he makes it watchable. So if they wanted another go at it and they can make a better script, sure, give it another shot. And I do remember, I can't remember the Chris Pine Jack Ryan for the life of me, but I remember how I felt when I watched it, and I thought it was decent. I remember thinking it wasn't bad. I didn't feel like what I felt without Remorse, but I also think these films, these action movies are always, I go into them with, I don't go with excitement. I'm like, okay, let's see what you got. So, and they've already got like a strike against me because it's not my favorite genre, but maybe I'm a little biased, but it's not that they can't win me over if they're good, but
but this one is not.
No.
I will also mention there is a post-credit scene in this one, or a mid-credits scene in this movie that does hint at something that fans of the Clancyverse, the Tom Clancy universe, will really be excited about. Let's just say multicolored through the sky after the rain. There's that and you'll know where I'm going. So yeah, it definitely hints at some fun stuff possibly in store. Although, as much as people don't like this movie, who knows if that'll ever happen? We shall see. We shall see. I just wonder if Amazon now, they have Krasinski playing Jack Ryan in their TV show. So I wonder if they're going to try to tie things together in any way and do it that way. We'll see. We'll find out eventually, but not a recommend from either of us.
No. I mean,
all right. Whatever. You want to give it a whatever? Is that what you said?
I said, whatever. I mean, like it's on Amazon Prime. So if you have it and you have nothing else to watch, it's free technically. But I just think that you could spend your time.
That's right.
With something else.
Time is important. Time management. This is not where you should spend it, I don't think.
Yeah.
All right, let's before we head into the best ever challenge, just a reminder, if you want to be a member of Sif Pop, you can do that at Patreon. Patreon.com/SiftPop is where you would go for that. Members get a weekly member bonus show at certain levels. And as mentioned, Susan and I talked about the Marvel promo drop and kind of how that made us feel, what it made us think about, and kind of what the next year and a half looks like from Marvel as we kind of get back to the movies. So if you want to check that out, you can do so. Also, members have no ads in the podcast. You have your own podcast feed that includes the members-only bonus show, as well as a podcast, the main show, with no ads in it. So that's something you can do too. That all happens at patreon.com/SiftPop. All right, we're moving on to the best ever challenge. We are going to do best ever Navy movies. Best ever Navy movies. So these are movies that predominantly feature the Navy aspect of things. So this was an interesting one for me because I kind of had to research, because there's different parts of the Navy and some were obvious to me, some weren't. But we're going to go from number 5 to number 1. Susan, if you have one higher than where I mention it, feel free to trump it and just say, and then we'll just wait until it's whoever has it higher on the list. We'll talk about it then. Okay. But let's start with your number 5. What do you got at number 5?
Okay. I just have to say, I too had to research what was Navy movies. So I hope these are right. That's what they said. Because I was like, it's hard to I know, I can think of military, Army, whatever, but I'm like, I don't know what's what, but apparently this counted as one.
You won't, you won't get any pushback from me because I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
sorry.
So go ahead.
So, number 5, American Sniper.
Nice. Yes, I think that does count. Yes.
So that was apparently when I was like, I did like it, fake baby and all. I thought it was surprisingly, obviously Bradley Cooper just does an amazing job in that film. It has its moments of cheese in there, but I think his performance and just what he went through, what that character went through, was powerful enough to make it it was interesting.
I like American Sniper. I think it's definitely one that holds your attention. Look, Clint Eastwood knows how to direct a movie. He gets it. He understands how to hold the audience, and the movie does it well. And I do remember the fake baby. First time I watched that. God. And it was my first thought, as it was apparently many people's first thought in that scene, was you're holding a baby doll. What is going on here? It is so obviously a doll.
So bad.
It's so bad. And it's just in what's even worse about those moments compared to other distracting moments is it just completely takes you out of the movie, because all of a sudden you're on a movie set and not in a movie. And it's just Bradley Cooper is trying to calm down an inanimate object right now. And I don't know what's going on. And then it was funny because afterwards I was like, did you see the fake baby in American Sniper? And it was the internet was yes, we all saw the fake baby in American Sniper. So yeah,
I know, it's a shame.
Really is. My number 5 is Top Gun.
Trump.
Oh, Susan's got it higher. All right, we'll wait till we get to where you have it to talk about it. What's your number 4, Susan?
Pearl Harbor.
Oh, interesting. A little Pearl Harbor love. This is not a well-loved movie.
No, I know. And it's so funny. And I only say it because of how I felt when I first watched it, when I was in I don't know, elementary school or something like that. I can't remember if I was elementary or middle school. At that time, I loved the movie, but I'm also a girl who's crushing hard on Ben Affleck and Josh Hartnett. I think that was the first time I was like, who is Josh Hartnett? Wow, you're attractive. But not that that's what the film should be about, but it was, at that time, I was like, wow, this is such a great war movie. And it really, it did everything it needed to do for me. And even though it's such, you want to talk about cliche, that has a very predictable twist, I guess you could say. But at the time it was great for me. I will admit that we tried to rewatch it not too long ago, and the DVD like skipped like about the first hour in, and we never bothered to try to finish it. Like my husband had to get rid of the DVD, and then we were like, that's all right. We don't need to watch it anymore.
Yeah, we're okay. We're all right. Sometimes you just got to let that live in your past and be, part of something you love. Yeah, look, I'm not going to hold it against you for loving a movie that came out at an impressionable time in your life with attractive people in it. See every Nicole Kidman movie in the early 90s for me. So, yes, I totally understand how that works. So, but yeah, Pearl Harbor was not at an impressionable time for me, and I did not necessarily enjoy it. But that's
fair
what
enough.
We're here to talk about.
I understand.
All right, on to my number 4. This is where I have Zero Dark 30 in at number 4. This movie is so intense, and there's some great performances in it. I know in hindsight there are some things we need to talk about this movie, and about rectifying with our own history of how we treat prisoners and all that stuff. And I think in hindsight, that is valuable to really have those conversations. As a movie, this remains incredibly made, incredibly tense, and some really great performances as well. So I think this is kind of the first movie I was like, oh, hello, Chris Pratt. Oh,
right? Yeah, that was before he was, what was that? Was that before or after Moneyball? Do you remember?
Oh, that's right. Moneyball was right around there. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I can look it out, but Moneyball was another one. Although in Moneyball, he still kind of gets to be like more of that goofball, like Andy Dwyer type thing. But yeah, that's interesting. So so anyway, Zero Dark 30 is one of my favorites. I'm looking at Moneyball was 2011 and Zero Dark 30 was 2012. So Moneyball would have been the year previous to this.
Okay. Yeah. I that was one thing I really remember about Zero Dark 30, because I was always a huge fan of Chris Pratt since Everwood. So anything he was in afterwards, I was like, yes, I hope this guy makes it. I don't know if he ever will. Because like Parks and Rec wasn't like, you weren't sure. But then, he got his Moneyball, and Zero Dark 30. I was like, oh, I really wonder if come on, you got this, man. And obviously he's one.
I think in the long span of history, Parks and Rec will go down as a better show than The Office. I really do.
I think that.
Yeah, I really do. And I like The Office, but I think Parks and Rec, when you start to look back at it and you look at that cast and what they were doing and what they've gone on to do, it's pretty impressive stuff. And The Office has a little bit of that too. In fact, was it Variety or somebody, Vulture, Variety, one of the VMags, recently released their top 100 TV shows of all time, or maybe it was sitcoms of all time. And Parks and Rec came in at like 8, like number 8 of all time.
Wow.
And The Office, I think, was around number 17 or so. So I'm not the only one that feels this way, apparently. But yeah, I think it's and that's taking into account a first season that was pretty subpar. The first season of Parks and Rec had a lot of learning to do about what kind of show that was going to be. But once they realized that Leslie Knope wasn't a Michael Scott type character, that she was adorable and lovable for what she did, not hateable and cringeable like the Michael Scott character is. Yeah. Once they zoned into that show just became awesome. So
yeah, I do agree, especially if you do look at the actors on Parks and Rec, are probably there's more successful careers out of that show, but that's a tough one. Oh, and you do make a good point. I would say overall, all the seasons, because the last 2 seasons of Office really
they're rough.
But Parks and Rec, it's really just that first season that's rough. So I have Office in my heart, but I mean, I love Parks and Rec.
And there's our conversation about Zero Dark 30.
Exactly. Right.
All right. I think we're on to your number 3. What do you got at number 3?
My number 3 is Men of Honor.
Yeah, that's a good choice. I like this movie.
Yeah.
I'm glad you talk about this one. This is my honorable mentions.
Oh, okay. So that doesn't count as a Trump, right? Or
No.
okay. Well, actually, it's funny because I hadn't even really heard of it until it was a DVD my husband had, and we watched it, and I was very impressed with it. I will say it does go on a little too long.
Sure.
There's a point where I thought the movie was done, and I was like, "There's still more." Like what?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think it could have it would have been amazing. It might have been higher on my list if it didn't have that extra 40 minutes or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. But it's so relevant to today too, as far as the race aspect of it. But I mean, yeah, I just think it's a great movie.
No, I'm glad you brought it up. I'm glad it's in your at number 3. It has one of the most impressive scenes in there's just this scene, I'm trying to think of perseverance, maybe not the word I'm looking for, but just endurance? I'm going to prove it to you. There are just some scenes in movies I'm going to prove it to you, and this has one of the best prove it to you scenes I've ever seen, and
I agree.
It's so good. So this movie is worth it for that scene alone. But you're right, it does go on a little long, and there's some other stuff in it, but yeah, De Niro and Cuba Gooding Jr. are both great in this. So yeah, there you go. Good choice. My number 3 is Hunt for Red October. Speaking of Jack Ryan and Tom Clancy, I love this movie. I love Sean Connery. I've recently started watching old Bond movies. I'm not a Bond person. I've never watched the old Bond movies. This dude's charisma is just off the charts, just in everything he's in. And this movie is intense. It's wonderful. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. Hunt for the Red October is really, really good.
Yeah, I'll admit I have not seen it.
Yeah, you should knock that off your list of shame at some point.
Yeah.
Let's see. Number 2. What do you got at number 2?
Top Gun.
Hey, there you go. That was my number 5. You've got it at number 2. Yep. So yeah, talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's another one I watched when I was a kid. I was really young, and I mean, I was very traumatized by Goose's death. That I think I was so young to the point where I was like, wait, what does that mean? He's not coming back. And I remember I can still remember Meg Ryan in her emotional state from his death. But I'm just a huge Tom Cruise fan, and I think it's great. I don't know. I really want to watch it again. Have you seen it recently?
I haven't. I'm going to do a rewatch with the new movie coming out here pretty soon. But no, I haven't rewatched it recently.
That was my plan too. When the new film comes out, I want to rewatch it. One, to see how it holds up, but also because I want to remember everything a little bit better. But it's a fun flick. I remember thinking it was fun, and Tom Cruise is great in it.
Yeah, it is. I remember there's an amazing volleyball scene.
Yes. Yeah, I remember that one too. People still make fun of.
Of course. Let's see. My number 2, I think, is where we are. Is A Few Good Men. Trump. This is what I have. You've got it at number 1. Well, we can go ahead and talk about it since we're going to do your number 1 next.
Go ahead.
Why don't you start since you've got it higher?
So A Few Good Men is actually probably in my all-time top 10 favorite films.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, it is. If there is something that I really enjoy about a film, it is a really good courtroom scene. I love it. And there's 2 points in this movie where I'm like, yes. There's they talk about he pulls a point as far about the cafeteria. It's I forgot what they use the term. It's there must be, if it's not in the handbook, so you're saying your people don't eat? There's not a place to eat? And he's like, oh, so that. And then, of course, whenever he says, I want the truth, that thing. But those alone make it I could watch the courtroom scenes over and over again because they're so just exciting and yeah, you got it. But it's just a great story. It's so good. And I would say it's still pretty original to this day, at least for me. I've rewatched it pretty often because it's one of those movies that I love to show people that've never seen it. Yeah. And I think every time people feel that was a really good movie and one of Tom Cruise's best. Not my favorite number 1 Tom Cruise, but still easily. He is so underrated as an actor, I think.
Well, I mean, you have him in your top 2 movies in this Best Ever Challenge, right? Like you got Top Gun and A Few Good Men. Somehow you are correct. Somehow Tom Cruise is over or underrated. He shouldn't be because he's amazing and everyone knows it. But yeah, there's something about him that I think for whatever reason, kind of, people don't want to give it credit. But yeah, he's incredible. He's absolutely astonishing. And he's great in here. Nicholson, of course, has his scene is amazing. Demi Moore is wonderful as well. And Sorkin, Sorkin's dialogue is just astonishing to me. And part of what makes those courtroom scenes sing is, just the way it's written and how well the performances back that up. Few Good Men is number 70 on my best of all time list. So
wow, you have impressive. Do you have like a top 100?
I have top 200.
Geez, that's
that I rank. Good. So yeah. But yes, it is at number 70 for me. Right behind Ex Machina, in case you wondered what else was right around it. Love that movie. All right, I guess that's just my number 1 then. And speaking of underrated movies, Master and Commander: Far Side of the World. This movie is astonishing. Russell Crowe is so great in this. Of all the movies ever that I am sad never had sequels, this is the main one. I wanted to see this man captain ships for the rest of cinema. Like it's just it's so much fun. It's so there's some movies that entertain you and hold your attention like this does, that also manage to educate you. And this is kind of one of those movies. Like when you watch it, you're just like, oh, that's exactly what it was like to captain ships at that time and to explore and to do those kind of things. And I know it comes from a book series as well, which again is part of the reason I was bummed it never got any sequels, because there's material there. But I just think I think the title is too lengthy. I think people, didn't know what they were getting into with that title, and Russell Crowe just wasn't quite enough to bring everybody in, and so it didn't do as well as they had hoped. But from me to anyone listening, Master and Commander: Far Side of the World is great, and if you haven't checked it out, you should do so. I love it. Wow. There you go. There's our top 5 best ever Navy movies. Let's see. Do you have any honorable mentions that you wanted to throw out?
Okay. I don't think of any.
I would throw out Apocalypse Now. I think it's important to mention that one. The Rock, if you want some Michael Bay craziness, you can do that. Bumblebee, the best Transformers movie. Bumblebee.
You think that's the best Transformers movie?
Easily the best Transformers movie. Predator, if you want to check that one out. And Crimson Tide is another one. Great Denzel movie, Crimson Tide, if you want to check that one out. Might be worth it. What's your favorite Transformers movie, Susan? Since it's not Bumblebee.
The first one with absolutely easily the first one. It's so good. I mean, everything after that to me was crap. Bumblebee was not crap. It was just okay for me. But the first one, just that one kind of blew me away.
I was so disappointed by the first Transformers movie for all the reasons I don't like the consecutive Transformers movie. It was very childish all around, and I don't know. There's this Michael Bay thing that I have to get over, and I have to let him do his thing, and it's okay. It's just not your thing, and I was sad because I love the Transformers so much. I had Transformers growing up. I was so pumped that somebody was going to do it right, and I just didn't feel like any of it worked. I didn't feel like the transformations work. Like the coolest. Okay, we're going to do it. We're going to go on our Transformers rant right here. The coolest thing about Transformers was that you had a semi truck, and then you moved pieces around, and it became a robot. Like how cool is that, right? Yeah. In this movie, that's not what happens. What happens is you have a semi truck. Then you have some sort of weird ball of pointy metal, and then it's miraculously a robot. None of the transforming makes sense. It's just a bunch of little shards of metal. Like it's just, I was so frustrated, Susan. It was my childhood had been ruined. And so, yeah.
Well, I mean, you have that's fair. I mean, I think you were a bigger fan of Transformers than me. I only watched the movie.
Yeah.
And I remember liking the movie as a kid, and I loved the soundtrack. I loved the soundtrack to that movie.
No, that's fair.
But so in the first one, it was good for me just because they were more focused on the characters, the Sam Twitty, whatever. Like I liked his relationship with Bumblebee, and it was just more simple. It was a simpler script. Obviously, after that, I was like, what is happening? This is too much. And if I see another explosion or was just overwhelmed with action, but I don't know. I guess it just worked for me on that one. It was simpler and it was enjoyable. Again, I was also younger at the time when I watched it, so I wasn't even a critic yet. So my expectations were it changes. It changes. Like
I totally get that.
It's kind of the it's kind of like the bittersweet part of being a critic, because we look at film so like it's hard not to be so critical and just like go into it, just enjoy it. Just enjoy it for what it is.
I think there is part of what we do that we have to continually remind ourselves that it's okay to bring out the microscope. That's fine. That's in fact, that's fun and it's interesting, and that can bring about some great revelations and some interesting conversations. But it's also just as important to put the microscope away sometimes and, take a broad view. And, and I think that's something that you can lose. You can just look through the microscope the entire time instead of taking a step back and, missing some things, letting some things go, and understanding a broader view of, a movie or whatever the case may be. So yeah, I'm totally there with you. I think that makes a lot of sense. All right, we're going to finish up with our buried treasure, Susan, and you get to finish us off. So I will start. Okay. I got around to seeing a movie that came out earlier this year. I believe it's now on PVOD, called The Voyagers or Voyagers. I think it's just Voyagers.
Oh yeah, I watched this too.
Yeah, this is one that I wouldn't necessarily recommend. My frustration with Voyagers is primarily in the fact that I really think there's an interesting concept here. I really think something could have been done in this area that really had something powerful and beautiful to say about the human impulse towards polarization, which we are dealing with as a culture so much right now. That impulse of us versus them, making people fear the other, all that kind of stuff for your own advantage. All that stuff is in here, but it's also so preachy and so didactic, and it turns the nuance level down to like negative numbers. There is no nuance in this movie, and because of that, nothing can land because it's all cartoonish and ridiculous. And I feel bad because I like Ty Sheridan. I think Ty Sheridan can do good work. And I'm not convinced that Lily Rose Depp can't do great work either. Like, there's a good cast here. And Colin Farrell hanging out in this movie for a bit too. So, but the story is so over the top cartoonish with what it's trying to say that it ruins it. It ruins what could have been, I think, a really interesting sci-fi metaphor movie, but it took the metaphor and it just put it like right on the surface and drew it out so clearly that you're like, I get it already. Like, tell me a story where the characters in the story movement, drive what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking, not what you're preaching about. It's just a shame when a movie can't see past its own worldview to really create a story. So yeah, Voyagers was quite a letdown in that way. Did you have similar feelings? I kind of feel like.
Yeah, it was. I'm like you. I really like Ty Sheridan. I think he's such a great actor, and I would not be surprised if one day he's like a big deal. But I agree. I'm with you. I felt like I was watching Lord of the Flies, but also a CW drama. Like that's because it was very surface level. I was just like, it offered nothing. And then the ending was the cherry on top for me. Cause I was like, are you kidding me? Yeah. We did all that and that's how you end? This was like a waste of time. Like, you want to talk worse than Without Remorse for me, because it felt so pointless. It was just like, okay, you're talking about the most literally Lord of the Flies in space and nothing to offer. except for it was a talented cast. And that's what I think I said in my review is like, if this was just a launch pad for this young cast that they'll go on for better things from it, great. But that's about all it offered for me.
Yeah, it offered a little bit more than that for me in that I liked some of the ideas. I liked the idea of the primary function or primary catalyst to the movie being this idea that they wanted to dull down human impulse. And there's an interesting conversation to be had about the idea of forced subservience versus willing education. And that could have been really interesting. It's not here, again, because everything is so on the surface and in your face. So, yeah. And if you want Lord of the Flies in the future, CW already has that show. It's called The 100. And it's literally about 100 teenagers that have to start a civilization. This is returning to Earth from space, but very similar thing. So,
well, yeah. And you are right. I do actually. In the beginning of Voyagers, I did get excited because I liked the idea of okay, Earth's too, what was it? It was too hot or something, and they needed to go. And I was like, okay, that was an interesting hook. And then start new life in this planet. But I felt like there wasn't enough of that. I was like, well, what's this other planet? Why is this so there was so much they left off, but I honestly already forgot that they weren't having feelings. They weren't expressing they weren't getting to feel sensations and things like that because that wasn't dived in enough. It was it was touched on, and it was more about jealousy. And
in the Jack character, the Fiona Whitehead character might as well have had a mustache tutorial. It was so over the top. And so that was one that I was disappointed in. What's your buried treasure, Susan?
So my buried treasure is just about the Oscars this year.
Oh, talk about the Oscars.
Yeah, because I'm still a little salty about it, and kind of like how you felt that there was so much potential. I was so excited. Well, first of all, the Oscars is my second favorite day of the year. It is a event for me from the moment I wake up, and I probably put too much expectation on it, but I was so excited because this was the first award show that was really doing the in-person thing. They were prepared. They were probably vaccinated, COVID testing, all this stuff. And I was like, ooh, this is going to be good. And red carpet wise, it started out okay. And I even liked the setup, in a more intimate look in that, wherever they were at, but it just fell so flat. I did not like the no clips thing. I thought the speeches, I knew the minute they were doing the speeches for so long, I was like, they're idiots here. They're thinking that they can let you're going to force to rush it at the end. You don't think that it's okay to do long speeches because you're going to run out of time. And then I thought it was very, very, tacky or just not tasteful to rush I cannot say this word very well at all. In memoriam. Is that the right way to say it? In
memoriam.
In memoriam. See, I keep messing it up.
No. We've all got those words. Yeah.
Yeah. They clearly put that on 2.5 speed when that came up. And I was like, this song's being rushed. We're just breezing. I can't even read the names. And I was like, if you're going to rush anything, do not rush the people that have passed away this year. And then rush Chadwick Boseman thinking, the worst thing in the world. Best Picture is meant to be last. I don't care if you think you're going to honor Chadwick Boseman at the end that you don't know is going to happen. It does not matter. Best Picture is the last award of the night. And then, it's just so cringy to end with Anthony Hopkins winning. I feel so bad because he did fantastic in The Father. And I'm not saying he totally deserves the win, but to clearly place that award at the end with the expectation that you're going to end with Chadwick Boseman and there's going to be this great standing ovation and an emotional speech and honor, and that's how you're going to end it, and then have Anthony Hopkins not even be there to accept the award. You've ruined his win that's labeled an upset, and he's got to honor Chadwick Boseman the next day in his own speech. and you've left the night already that was rough end that way. I mean, freaking Joaquin Phoenix is just like, all right, sorry, good night, bye. Like, that's just all the more reason they need a host back. I'm not into the no host thing. Go back to the traditional like setup of this show and bring a host and provide clips and give us better entertainment and shorten those speeches. I don't need to know that like blah blah's favorite movie was whatever they said it was. Like, I just get in, go back to the way things were.
I have so many Oscar thoughts, many of which you can see on our live stream. If you haven't got a chance to check that out, by the way, you could even fast forward to some of the places like when we realized they were doing Best Picture with the actor and actress still left to go, and you can just see it on our faces. We're just like, what is going? This makes no sense. In fact, I think I even said something like, they're going to do this, and then Anthony Hopkins is going to win. And it's
you said Anthony Hopkins?
Yes, and it's going to be, what do they do then? I think I phrased it as a hypothetical, not necessarily that. It's not like I predicted it, but I said, what if Anthony Hopkins wins? And and just here's the two things that can happen once you make that choice. Number one, it can go all wrong like it did, and it can become, obvious, that it was a bad choice. Mm-hmm. Let's say Chadwick wins, and you get to have the speech from his wife, and it's beautiful or whatever. You still have two things. You still have the ickiness of using that to do some kind of cool ending for your show. And you also have a backlash of, see, I knew it was rigged. I knew they knew I knew they knew who the awards were. And so they would have never done that if they hadn't known for sure. Like, they know. Yeah. So you're handcuffing yourself in a couple ways, even if it goes the way you think you want it to. And it's such a dumb decision. And I respect Soderbergh. I love so many of his films. I know he wasn't the only one making those decisions. He was one of the producers, but it was kind of played as his, production. And I just think it was a bad choice. And you know what? We all make bad choices, but it was from the moment we knew where it was headed, it was icky. It felt gross. It felt wrong. Yeah. I mean, Best Picture, you end with Best Picture, not because that's the way it's always been, but because that's the way that makes the most sense. You're never going to have a moment like this when you end with Best Picture, because there's producers and so many people to get up on stage and to talk, and it's a celebration of the best film of the year. I mean, everything about it makes sense. So
yeah. And that's I didn't even think about that. That's because it already felt icky as like whenever they were about to do Best Picture, and I was like, wait, what? And I was like, oh, they like, I guess they know Chadwick's winning and they're doing this to the end. And that feels really, I guess if anything, it proves that they don't know. It's not rigged.
That's how they tried to spin it. That's the whole next day. They were like, see, we don't know. And it's like, yeah, okay, great try, but still awful. Now, the only thing I will disagree with you on is I think they should let people talk as long as they want. But I also think the show should be 6 hours long. So I have no problem with like, hey, we're starting the show at 4 p.m. It'll be over when it's over, and make it like the Super Bowl. Like, does anybody go to the Super Bowl and go, oh, did you see how long the Super Bowl was this year? No, because you're watching a game. Like the long speeches are the timeouts and the different things that happen in it's an evening experience. And I just let them talk as long as they want. Okay. Is what I say.
That is fair to say if the show can be as long as it needs to be.
Right.
But the reason why I was freaking out is because I knew this happens every year. They run out of time. And there's a point, but this year in particular, has never felt so rushed towards the end than it did with this one. Like it was, you could tell they were, and I think it's because of that video. Like it was just, it was so noticeable and cringy that I was just like, oh. And then also, I'm not a fan of thank God for Glenn Close because she saved it. But that little trivia thing with the audience, that was, if she didn't dance, that would have flatlined big time. That was not good.
Yeah, I agree with you. They need an MC, host, whatever you want to call it. They need a master of ceremony, somebody who can, tie everything together, offer a quip here and there, is witty and fun. And yeah, it almost doesn't matter anymore. They've kind of sunk the ship at this point.
Yeah.
They were down more than 50%. It was under 10 million people watched. Like, it's kind of over. And so at least that gives them permission to kind of, tear it to the ground, make a show for the people who are going to love it, and give up on this mass audience. And you know what might happen? The audience might start to come back because it's a fun show. And people who love movies, you know how many people watch the Super Bowl that couldn't care about football? Like, it's because it's an event and it's fun and you get together with people and you have it on the TV. And I think the Oscars could be that, but they don't see it as that right now. So yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad I got to talk a little bit more about the Oscars. That was a lot of fun. But yes, if you ever do go back and watch our live stream on the Sif Pop YouTube channel, there are definitely moments where you will see our minds be blown based on what happened. So, well, we did it, Susan. We did a podcast. We set out to do a podcast, and we managed to make it happen. Well done. Thank you so much for joining us today. Sif Pop is part of the Studio DNA Podcast Network. You can find out more about other shows on the network at studiodna.media or by searching for Studio DNA in your podcast player. Huge thanks to producer Phil for producing the audio and video show. Love you, Phil. Thanks to Drew for doing a lot of the graphics you see on the video show. Big clap. And thank you to Susan. Susan wasn't ready for the big clap. She was like, oh no, I wasn't ready for a clap. Susan, thank you for being on the show again today. Where would you like to tell people to find you?
Yeah, you can find me at thischicksflix.com, Instagram, ictn.tv. Like, is that all of them? You can Google me. I always say Google me.
Thischicksflix.com with X's, right?
Yes,
both chicks and flicks with X's.
Yes.
So yes, this chicks flicks with X's at the end of both of those words.com if you want to find out everything, Susan, on the internets. We appreciate you. Thanks for coming on the show. I'm glad you come hang out with us every once in a while. It's really fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
If you want to be a Sif Pop member, you can do that by going to patreon.com/SifPop. Support starts $3 a month. You get a lot of fun perks there. Of course, we've talked about the bonus show, no ads on the podcast. You can check out the different levels for everything at patreon.com/SifPop. Lots of ways to connect with the podcast. You can leave a comment, rate, or review at Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. You can also email us, feedback@sifpop.com. And finally, if you're having a good time, your movie-loving friends will probably like the show too. So make sure you let them know about it and that listening is much easier than making 10 seconds of unobstructed family eye contact. We will be back next week, I think, with Wrath of Man and Army of the Dead. I think will be the two on review next week. Whatever they are, though. Hope to see you then. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, those hanging out for the video. Jay Bourgeois, saw you hanging out in there. David, saw you in there as well. Edmund says, bought the Top Gun Steelbook in December, still have yet to watch it. You should do that. You should do that. Let's see. Jay Bourgeois agreeing with us on Without Remorse. The movie is so cliche and paint by numbers. I expected so much better from Taylor Sheridan scripts at this point. Yep. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. And then producer Phil says, I will never forget Glenn Close's dancing to Da Butt. None of us will. Phil. None of us will.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on that note, we'll catch you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.